So, as the title would suggest, I'm going to be doing some testing around the ties that bind. This is a skill in Amara's Fist of the Elements tree. It is incredibly strong. It's one of her best mobbing tools. It, by default, links all nearby allies when you phase grab an enemy, and it chains them together. All of the chain targets share 35% of the damage that they receive. This, by default, works really well when you have slow firing single target weapons like sniper rifles or blast radius damage that hits all the targets and therefore shares 35% of both the hit and the splash that happens to other enemies across. So by default, it works with heavy hitting weapons. It works with like explosives or anything with blast radius, grenades, things like that. But yeah, it works with everything really. There's nothing that it really doesn't work with. You could pull up any weapon and it'll be very effective. There's certain ones that are just better, but for the most part, it's just very strong. One thing I would be leery of is if you see a build using this, it can be a little misleading. The skill is very strong. It can make certain setups or weapons that are non-ideal look ideal just because it's so strong in and of itself. That being said, I really don't like how strong anointeds are. I don't like the guardian rank system sort of manipulating the base level of everybody's strength. So I think there's a lot of that going on anyway, but ties that bind can kind of compound that. That being said, I really do like the skill. I think it's interesting. It has some abusive combinations with certain class mods, or a certain class mod, I should say. So getting into our testing parameters real quick, and this test shouldn't take more than maybe 15 minutes from beginning to completion, but I do want to test three separate things, and one of them is really just me showing what it's capable of. Let's look at our Guardian rank. I take nothing in Enforcer. I don't want to modify the gun stats, if at all possible. We're not in Mayhem mode. We have no Mayhem modifiers. This is for more consistency of leaving the game and coming back and getting the same numbers. Finally, I'm going to remove my class mod, so we're not worrying about that, and I'm going to remove my artifact as well. So my shield currently is Shooting Star. Let's go ahead and replace that with something that won't matter here. This transformer does nothing for the facepuncher, which is what we'll be doing our testing with, and our grenade does nothing as well. So let's go ahead and jump into the build we're going to be using to test this, and the first thing that we need is obviously ties that bind. So I don't want to take infusion. I don't want to split the damage types and see more than one number. That being said, the chains will always be whatever our damage type is, our action skill damage type. But I don't want to split infusion, so I'm going to take Anima. We're not dealing any statuses, so anytime I take a status, it will not be affecting our damage output. We have some recoil reduction and accuracy. This will help me land pellets more consistently, so this is kind of nice for it. But we kind of reached an impasse. We can put 5 points in Wildfire. Statuses won't matter. But Dread increases our damage. Illuminated Fist will increase our damage because of the gun we're using. And Infusion splits the damage type. So we're going to take Tempest. This does not affect the amount of damage I deal directly, but it will change the amount of damage that is spread by the chains from ties that bind. Now that we've spent that many points, we can go ahead and take ties that bind. The other thing that I want for this test is I want stillness of mind. So I'm going to be testing on some skags down here, and I don't want to have to kite them all the time. I want them very still where I can see numbers popping up for all of them. So we're going to take stillness of mind, so I have to put a few points in here. Now, a lot of these skills affect weird things like reload speed, cooldown reduction is going to be nice for this. Do harm does drastically affect the amount of damage the chains transfer, so we're not going to be taking that. I'm going to go ahead and take Violent Tapestry. It does status effect stuff. We are not dealing status effects again, so that won't matter. Take the cooldown reduction to speed up the tests a little bit. We have Stillness of Mind. Now we're finally going to end in the green tree. And what I'm going to take for this is health and defense. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm taking no offensive stats, and I'm just trying to get down a jab cross. So I'm sure you're starting to see where this kind of comes together. Whenever Amara deals melee damage, which the face puncher deals, she gains gun damage and action skill damage. So we have 3 points left to spend. That'll get gun damage up by 10% and action skill damage by 45%. So what we're expecting to see is a much higher than 10% increase if action skill damage does apply to the chains, which I already know it does, but I kind of want to show. The second test we're going to be performing is with the Laid Bare skill from the Mystic Assault tree. This one right here. So this one will cause enemies to take additional damage if they have already been damaged by her action skill. So we're going to be testing to see if the chains count as damage or if there's some sort of other effect. Worth noting in this part is that it does not seem to be that the chains will transfer damage over time effects. So we will test that as well in one of the segments, and I have a lot of dot guns, so it should be pretty easy. Let's go ahead and get into the test. I'm going to grab some dogs, round them up. Once we get them in a tight little ball, I'm going to pick them up, and we're going to see how this damage comes out without our jab cross. So we've got a number of enemies here. Let's go ahead and pick them up. Alright, so we're looking for the big number, 715. So 715 is the amount of damage we will deal by default. Let's go ahead and put our points into jab cross. One final note on jab cross is that this damage buff will be after we apply melee damage. This means we have to hit them twice. So once to get the buff, and then the second time we'll actually have the buff. So let's go ahead and let them reset. I'm going to grab my action skill again in a few seconds, and then we'll lift them and rinse repeat. So 715 is the amount that we're expecting, so let's see what damage we get. So 715 the first time, and 1129 the second time. So we can see very clearly the damage is drastically higher than our expected 10%. So 715 should jump, if it's just the gun damage portion, to about 785, 790, somewhere along that route. We're seeing much higher results in the neighborhood of 1100. So 1129 is what we're seeing there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to reset, do our skill tree over again. We're going to need to reset these enemies so we can test on them again, and we're going to do the same thing, but for Laid Bare. So just taking our time here. Now the skill tree build will be a little different. We don't need to go into the green section really at all. We don't need jab cross, so we don't really need it. Over here, we still need to get to Stillness of Mind, and we need to get to Laid Bare now. So we're going to take 5 points into here, 5 points into there, 5 points into here. So we're going to grab Stillness of Mind. We're going to get 3 points in Laid Bare. We're going to come over to this tree. We're going to put 2 points into Anima. We're going to put 3 points into Steady Hands. We're going to max out Tempest, and we're going to max out our Wildfire. So that gives us access to Ties That Bind. Now we have to reset those enemies. And once we're in, we'll make a little run for it to get over to the Skag Pit. Once we're there, we should expect to see 715 spread damage on the first shot, because Laid Bare only applies after we have dealt damage. So it should apply on the second shot, third shot, fourth shot, not the first. So we're going to see if that holds up true and if it does actually buff our skill. Rounding them up. Alright, so this is a good little pack here. So again, we're expecting 715 from the main hit. 715 we're seeing. And then... Ooh, I saw a lot of numbers on top of each other there. Let's do this again just to make sure we have the right right numbers. It looked like one of them didn't get picked up for some reason. I'm not sure why that occurred. 715, 893 is what it's showing. So 893 sounds about right. So if we take 715, we take 10% of that, that's 70, plus another 10% to get to 20%, that's 140. We add half of 70, 35. So about 180 increase on our 715, and we get to 890. So that sounds about right. We're going to do a little test here, and we're going to put on a dot damage weapon if the UI decides to, exist. All right, so this weapon should be pretty good. This third one. So once I'm going to go ahead and get a dot first, and then I'm going to lift him just to show that the damage doesn't transfer. So we have a dot. No damage is being transferred from that enemy, and he even died while under the effects. So we see very clearly dot damage is not calculated into, I guess, incoming damage, or I don't know exactly how it calculates that, but it seems as though, and I believe in the tooltip it says weapon damage under ties that bind are linked, and any damage dealt to the linked target is shared between them. So yeah, it just says damage dealt to them. I'm not 100% sure why it doesn't transfer dot damage as well. That would be pretty cool if you wanted to like load up one enemy with dots and then lift them and just see it like kind of proliferate like you'd see in other games. Like there's like skills that'll do that. But that's how dots interact with ties that bind. Finally, before I conclude this video, I kind of want to show why I feel like ties that bind is broken. And it's not usually broken. It's only broken, in my opinion, when you combine it with the Phasezerker class mod. So if I come over here, I'll grab my Phasezerker. This isn't even a good one. It only has the two dot skills on it, which honestly doesn't make sense. Mine's for Jacob's weapons, which... Our facepuncher is Hyperion, so that won't affect anything. Keep in mind, this does give us a very hefty amount of gun damage. And then I won't even put an artifact on. So let's go ahead and come over to here, and we're going to finish out our blue tree a little bit more. I don't want to take anything that's gun damage. Let's go ahead and take From Rest. That increases our fire rate and charge rate. That doesn't matter. And then Awakening, to be completely honest with you, I'm not sure what Awakening does, but we're going to probably shy away from it right now just so I'll be able to keep the test consistent. And then we're going to take 5 points into Do Harm and then finish off with Avatar. So what this is going to do is between Phasezerker and Avatar, it's going to allow us to stack very easily the buff from Do Harm. Do Harm, for every 10 rush stacks, will be dealing 45% action skill damage. We have already seen that both Laid Bare and action skill damage will increase the effects of ties that bind. This essentially will mean we're getting about 450% increased damage from our chains. Now, that damage is basically because we can stack Do Harm 99 times because of the way Phasezerker works. And if we take ties that bind, we see it gives us 35% of the damage is shared. If we multiply 35% times 4, so we'll do it times 2, that's 70%. Then times 2 again for 4, that's 140%. And then we'll just throw on another 20% on top of that. We're dealing 150% of our base hit to other enemies. That's just incredibly strong. I feel like it makes too many builds viable. I'm not 100% sure how to fix it other than nerfing the way rush stacking works. I think that's maybe the approach. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at what it will do. the main way, in case nobody knew, is you aim straight down. And this is how you will stack Phasezerker Rush Stacks. And you'll notice our buffs are going up each time. So Phasezerker gives us 25 stacks, whether we have them or not, and then immediately consumes them. So we have 99 of whatever stack we want, and let's see what the damage output looks like. So we see those guys got obliterated. It was about 2,000 damage. But to be honest with you, that might have been just what their remaining health was. We will rinse repeat that test again. These guys are a little bit more fresh. So we're going to get to 99 stacks again. Then I'm going to lift them. And we're going to see... Oh, come on, guys. Come here. And let's see what that 6,000, 5,000... I saw a number of 5,000 to 6,000 damages. So... I think that pretty much shows you how incredibly strong this is. We went from dealing without stacking do harm, dealing 715 with laid bare. I believe it was 890, almost 900. With the cross jab ability, which does give us a decent percentage, we jumped up to like 1150, and I think all those are fine. But with do harm stacking, we took something from doing probably, if we did laid bare and the jab cross, it'd probably be about 1,500 damage. We took that with do harm to do 5,000-6,000 damage. That's absolutely crazy how incredibly strong that is. And I'll just kind of show you how effective it can be in situations. I'm going to go one more stack, and then I'm going to lift, where are we at? So I'm lifting this guy, 14k on her, 7k, that's just what she had left. We got another enemy over there. So the damage multiplication is much higher than the damage you're even dealing to the main target. We just got through her shield at all. It's very, very strong. And it can be used to kind of cheese stuff. If you want to like pick up a trash mob and then shoot them with the gun, and it reflects to the badass enemy you're fighting, or the anointed, or whatever, it actually increases your damage versus the anointed. One final note, any sort of damage you're dealing to the main creature you're hitting is going to be amplified based on the damage health, or the health type that they have. So if you're dealing shock damage to a shield, you're going to be transferring more damage because they're taking more damage. I'm going to do one last lift, and we're going to lift him. Look at the distance on that, and then we just shoot him. It's just so strong. It's killed all the targets connected. That guy didn't get hit at all, but he got lifted. I'm not 100% sure why that happened, but I think this concludes the test. If you guys have anything I missed about this, just let me know. I think this about covers it for this video, though. If you have any other comments or anything else you want me to test, let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.